Most of them are Hollywood. The people who vote for the Academy Awards are part of the Hollywood family. So they call themselves, even when people compliment you, it's a backhand slap. Halle Berry won an award for appearing naked. Denzel Washington made half a dozen fantastic pictures. The guy went from being a bad cop. We have to recognize,
this is design.
Yes, it's design, but it's not just design. It's what people think about us. So what we must do, we must not put ourselves in a position where we be made fun of by making fun of ourselves. Pass the microphone to him. Then come back. He wants to say something too.
I just wanted to mention when we was talking about the structures over in
Talk a little louder.
Just wanted to mention about the structures that we mentioned over in Egypt.
Yes.
It's one of the things that just me personally, my evaluation, they had a good understanding of saw mechanics.
Okay.
Now, when I say that, it's whenever I went to the temples like, say down in Luxor, and a lot of the temples will have these huge columns. I mean, huge, like, 6 feet diameter, whatever. And they would be in rows. You know how you have columns in rows?
Yes.
And even now today, you get down them columns, you look down the line, every last one of them, right?
Perfectly lined.
Yeah. After thousands of years.
I've got a film showing some Tekka news that they destroyed. They wouldn't put up because they were not precisely straight. They threw away stuff better than stuff we got today. Because they said it had to be perfect. That's a concept almost beyond us. Make do. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And plus they understood masonry. You see those Egyptians with aprons on, over 60 or 70,000 years ago.
Yes.
They had masonry back there.
Well, those who were masons were those who were crafted in knowing how to build those things, who studied that. Our modern masons are just a reflection of that. Right. We got make-believe masons today.
Square,
we got make-believe masons and make-believe fraternities and sororities. We have American copies of Europeans who are trying to copy the things back in Kemet.
Getting back to Hollywood now, I was going to say, everyone should get this book, Behold a Pale Horse by Bill Cooper, and look at the protocols in there, and then you will understand everything you want to know about the Jews and why they are doing this. Read the protocols and get the book, Behold a Pale Horse by Bill Cooper, which they killed him about 2 years ago, the sheriff shot him. But it's got the protocols in there. Read every bit about the protocols, and then you understand everything what the Jews is doing to us in the world.
George G.M. James, by the way, was also assassinated. The person that wrote Stolen Legacy. And he was killed, I'm told, in a ritualized Masonic way, in that his stomach was split and his entrails thrown to the wind. Some people have died to provide us with information.
Where did this happen,
I don't know the exact location.
Was it in America?
I think it was in America, yes. George G.M. James wrote Stolen Legacy.
Say this in other words, once you get past, read Albert Pike, which is
Yes.
He's the father of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes.
Then you get past the 18th degree. It tell you in Mars and Dogma, get that book. Mars and Dogma, you get past the 18th degree. Now I was a Mason, yeah. But I didn't go down to the 18th degree. But you go to a certain degree, you're not gonna get back up over and over, and then they will keep you.
What's the name of it?
Mars and Dogma.
Mars and Dogma by Albert Pike.
Mars and Dogma.
He was one of the founders of the Ku Klux Klan.
And the father of the Ku Klux Klan.
A statue of-
is downtown in number 4th precinct.
That's right.
Moors and Dogma.
Dogma.
Go down there and read it, and when you're down there, keep it.
What about who?
Albert Pike.
Mars, M-O-R-A-L-S.
Morals and Dogma.
Morals or Moors?
Morals and Dogma. A lot of people have been made rich by keeping knowledge to themselves. Anthony Browder says very often that we are the best kept secret on the planet.
Exactly.
We seek from ourselves. And I just wonder sometimes how much we could do if we recognize who we were and got back to our true selves. We like the story about the eagle who grew up among chickens, had no idea he could fly. He walked around the ground, pecking at the ground. He could fly above the trees. Writing. This comes out of Tony Browder's book. What he does is very helpful. He shows, going back to Kemet, the symbols in Kemet, and then moves it on through the other cultures to where we are today. The Kemetic, the Semitic, the Phoenician, the Greek, and then the Roman. We use Roman letters today.
It's also in the book that Dr. Suzar blacked out the whitewash.
Yes, blacked out through whitewash by Suzar. So, you know, writing comes from us again, you know. And they had me believing that writing came from the Romans, that what we were doing was this primitive stuff. You know, I've now learned that primitive means first.
Right.
Okay? And there's the rest of the alphabet. One thing here I thought was kind of interesting right here, if I can read it. He has one place he talks about different letters coming into being. At a certain point, they started putting two U's together. They call it the double U. Okay? The W. You know? All right? We call it the W. The double U. The W is a double U. This chart also will carry back this. I go back and. I don't think we'll find what's missing here. F G H I. Why is the J missing? The J is a recent letter.
Recently, right. So therefore,
Of course, that means Jesus could not have been named Jesus. Yeah. Okay. Astronomy and religion. I will spend a little bit of time on this. I'll finish up with this. And by the way, read the chapter in Charles Finch's book, Echoes of the Old Dark Land, on religion, because we're going to deal with that next time and where words come from. There are people now forgotten, discovered while others, the barbarians, the basis of systems we use today, based on the laws of nature. Everything for the folks in Kemet, as in Africa, everything was one. Everything was everything. And by seeing things in a holistic way, they were able to perceive a lot of things we miss today because we've been taught to see everything as being separate. Okay? Based upon their understanding of the precession of the planets, the 25,000 plus years it took the sun to move through the universe and come back to the same place, carrying the planets with it, they were able to put forth that there was a great year that the planets and the sun went through. They then divided the great year into 12 parts called the ages, and they designated each age with an animal or a symbol. The Greeks, seeing these animal symbols in the Egyptian cosmology, used the word that they had for animals, place we kept animals, the zoo, and created the word we now call zoology or the zodiac. But that comes out of Kemet. And one of the reasons they used animals was because if they taught you a certain understanding of the animal, you understood how the animal operated, then you understood how the age operated, and people could not arbitrarily manipulate the information. Because the cat acts like a cat, and a dog acts like a dog, and a cat does not act like a dog. Okay? Now, one of the things that happened to us, when other people took these things out of Kemet, they substituted what they had for what they didn't have. So in the Kemetan system, the dung beetle was in the calendar, was in the zodiac. They didn't have dung beetles of the same kind in Greece and Rome, so they substituted the crab. But a crab is not a dung beetle. Okay? I always had problems with my symbol. I'm an Aquarius, the water bearer. I had problems with that. Didn't quite understand, in my life why I was always ahead of other people for some reason. Interested in stuff that people, had no interest in whatsoever. And maybe 20 years after I start studying something and telling about it, and they think I'm totally crazy, they realize, he was talking about something that made some sense. But that time, I'm 20 years further down the road. That's a lonely position to be in sometimes. Yeah. Your family think you're crazy,
I started, many years ago.
Give him the microphone.
I started asking people, you might not believe it.
Pass the microphone right quick.
It's on. It's on.
I said, I don't know what I'm followed that or followed this or not, but I started this over 35, almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I never forget, in other words, I was with my buddy, right? And we was together, in other words, and he was always get the girls, in other words, but I would always ask the girls, what's your sign? And
Yeah.
they would run up, shy away from me. And they go ask him, say, what's wrong with that guy? You know, so I started, asking people because I got into astrology because of domestic reason. Started getting books from the Rosicrucians and different places like that and all, and then learning about masonry and all. But I had pictures of the stars, stuff like that. I've always been interested in that.
Yeah.
But I did started asking people, different people, what's your sign? And then I could figure then, what their personality is like. So it's been close to 35, 40 years ago.
When I started this heavy, is after I left Phi Beta Sigma fraternity as the executive director. I expected to get another job rather quickly, heading another organization. But we were in a depression from George Bush 1. And so a lot of social service organizations were going out of business. So I stayed home and read for 2 years. And my wife thought I was crazy. My mother, who's the Presbyterian minister, she knew I was going to hell. And I talked to my friends about stuff, and it's real strange, And the first time I went on Bernie McCain's show, and in that week after that show, I got more than 100 telephone calls. My wife recognized then, this Negro's figured out something. Now, I'll tell a story on her. She was the bossalist, the president of her sorority chapter. Every year they had what's called a rededication. And this particular year, she was kind of perplexed because, do the same little ceremony every year. It's kind of tired and trite. She wanted something different. So I said, okay, here's what you do. I said, have 3 or 4 sorors come forward, pour a libation, and have them call the name of a soror who is particular to them. Somebody back in their hometown. Somebody helped them with their education or gave them some money or something, Not a national officer, not the founders, but somebody particular to them. I said, probably 3 or 4 will do it. They go on the rest of the meeting. She was 5 hours late coming home that afternoon. From the normal time she'd come home. I was worried something may have happened to her. Started calling around, couldn't find nobody. By the time she came through the front door, the phone downstairs and upstairs started ringing. She went upstairs. I'm on the phone downstairs. Everybody wanted to talk to her. You got to call upstairs. Phone's busy upstairs. I can't do nothing about that. That's where she is. It's busy because she's on the phone. I didn't find out a couple of days later what had happened. Once the first couple of sorors came up, she figured it might be 2 or 3 of them. Every last one of them wanted to come up at least once. Okay. Some of the older sorors pulled rank because their age wouldn't come a second time. They got to weeping and crying. The whole atmosphere in the room changed. Okay. I saw that myself in a meeting at my fraternity. A buddy of mine and I were talking the night before the big meeting and about all the confusion was going to happen during the week and all the backbiting and fighting and whatnot. We were trying to think of some kind of way to change the atmosphere. Anheuser-Busch had just that year given all the black fraternities all portraits of their founders. We took the portraits with us to a meeting in Louisville, Kentucky, because nobody had ever seen them before. We decided what we would do. The next morning I went to the microphone. I said, brothers, last night I made a mistake when I read out the first initial vote count. I forgot to seat one of the chapters. Big mess now because they've been politicking all night based upon the numbers I gave them, before, the afternoon before. What's Gerald trying to pull? I said, no, we have not sat the Omega chapter. That's the chapter for deceased members. We always transferred membership to that chapter. We'd never sat them before because they ain't physically here. We took chairs out of every section of the room. We have 7 regions. Put them in front, facing the audience. Put the pictures of the 3 founders in the first 3 chairs. Put implements representing brothers who had passed away in the past 2-year cycle on the various chairs. I watched a guy who I knew had come from California to cause some mess. I watched him get up and go to the microphone 3 times, look forward to the front, shake his head, and sit down. 3 times I saw that. When the meeting was over, I said, Tony, why did you not do what you'd come to do? He said, Gerald, I could not look in the face of the founders and do what I'd come to do. They've never repeated that process. Okay? There's power in things that we might, if we find ways of inculcating spirit into things, you know, we can't tell what may happen. Carver, pass Carver the microphone.
Is it on? I don't, you know, that's very important because ancestors, and a lot of times, you know, we get in these meetings and stuff and we have some big speaker come and we start, and it almost becomes like a contest to see which ancestor, which obscure big name person I could pull out the hat, you know, and throw out there and say, oh, Dr. George, GMJ, you know, and you see that. And but people very often don't call upon ancestors, their own ancestors.
Yes.
Because that's where most of your power is going to come from. It's not going to come from Dr. Clark, as powerful as he was. It's not going to come from whoever. It's going to come from your ancestors. You have to know your ancestors because your ancestors are the ones that most positively and most forcefully impact your life. And a lot of us don't even know the names of our own ancestors. But even if you know just a few, they're really, and it's not a lot of mysticism. It's not a lot of you know, crazy. You know, sometimes people get superfluous with the spiritual. Yeah, but sometimes people get all you know, really superfluous with the spiritual stuff, and they try to come off like they all spiritual. It's real. I mean, it's real energy. These are your ancestors. These are the people that came before you, and it's solid down to earth stuff. You don't have to get all crazy.
Their blood is flowing through your veins.
Yeah, it's just what it is. Calling their names, you actually will feel the power. You actually will, and you don't necessarily have to have a ritualized way. There are some ritualized way to do it, but just something very simple: a clean glass of water, a white candle, and put the candle on a white cloth. Call their names out. You know, just make it real solemn, real sacred. I mean, and maybe light them some incense. Maybe give them a plate of food. You know, some neck bones, whatever they used to like, collard greens. We know some of that stuff is not good, but that's what our ancestors ate. So you give them that kind of thing, you know, and they really will work for you. But you just got to ask. We just don't ask.
You can do stuff as simple as carrying. I tell folks when somebody's deceased and they're real sad about that, I say get some implement that they had. Give them their keys. Put it on your keychain. Europeans call that a fetish, like there's something spooky about it. No, it's just a point of contact. It's something that belongs to them that you now carry with you. I did a program on WL with Lisa Mitchell several years ago, and I was talking about calling on the ancestors. I was quoting Maladon Patrice Sommet, who was in this area last week. And he said,
Who's that?
Maladon Patrice Sommet is an African shaman. And he said that, you know, that black people's ancestors are standing on the unemployment line while we call on other people's ancestors, some of whom didn't even exist. You know, girl called up, she said she'd been calling on Jesus, had some problem. Calling on Jesus, said didn't make any difference. She said when she heard me say call on your ancestors, she hollered, Grandma! She said immediately she felt different. Now I can't explain that. I'm just saying what she said. Microphone, go ahead.
The experience I had before I met you with one of the important people in my life, with Dr. Bike, he imparted upon, I think, the whole class of the people, ladies in here in the classroom, a certain spirit and a certain knowledge that you could feel it and the procedures, some of the assignments we had. We would, you know, I know he had come through some periods of being lonely because he gave us a background of his life because his house was broken in 3, 4, 5, 6 times. He had a bunch of locks on the front door, so they tried to destroy his laboratory and everything. But you know, just like you say, he said before he passed, some of the ones he told me that he said I can help y'all better on the other side. Yeah.
I'll move a little quicker now because I want this on film before the film runs out.
And I just want to quickly say that this morning I was thinking of Dr. Bike, and it's like he came into our life and gave us so much, and then he was just taken away, but he made the decision to leave us in the physical plane. But I want to say that my family looked to me as being very religious, you know, in an Orthodox church. But after studying under Tony Browder, Dr. Ben, and I just have not given up. And in a few more years, I'll be 60. But this is something that we have to continue. Well, at my family reunion, I had gathered all my African instruments, and, you know, we have preachers in the family, and I was like, oh, Lord, help me. You know, I call on spirit a lot. But my grandmother had 15 children, and she had a 3rd grade education, and we have 300 acres of land in Virginia. And we're discussing what we're going to do with this land, and each one of us, you know, I have almost 20 acres, you know, of land, and it's something to be proud of. So at the meeting, I found myself down in Virginia with these African instruments, and I had this African outfit on. I had a tape, African drumming, and I said, how in the world do you do libration? Well, I had been at so many African-centered things throughout this short life of mine that I was up in front. I had read about 5 books and got this libation statement together because we have to give thanks to the ancestors. And it wasn't until this Monday night that I give thanks to the spirits that are aiding me, because to hear Soma Melodoma explain Monday night the importance of us doing this. And I said, Lord, my family gonna really think this Aquarian done lost her mind for sure. I was up there calling on the ancestors, and when you in a family where 15 have gone on, there was a lot of calling going on in that room because of all my cousins. Everybody had an instrument and they were playing, and the drumming of the African drum in the background added to the atmosphere, you know, in the meeting. And just to get my family, everybody I could give an instrument to had one and was playing it. But it does give a different dimension to whatever is going on where you have the ceremony taking place. And I just have to say, we need to continue it, that it makes a great big difference. It truly does.
It's not something you can quantify, but the whole atmosphere in the room will change. Let me just finish one thing I started saying, didn't finish. When I found out that the Kemetan symbol for Aquarius was the ibis, that helped me. The ibis is a bird that stands in the waters of the Nile just before the waters recede. When the waters recede, ibis is gone. The ibis is a symbol of the good times to come. But the ibis is always ahead of the good times. You know, I chose the name Assagai. I found out after I chose the name means the same thing as Gerald. It means spear. That again told me that, you know, that part of my job is to be ahead of the curve. It makes you're gonna be uncomfortable sometimes, but it must mean the Creator likes you enough to give you the strength to move forward, you know, and to bring other people with you. I'll move a little fast. I'm gonna do a couple things before the tape runs out. Based upon the great year, the folks in Kemet organized what is now called the various ages. I like to start with the age of Leo, 10,800 BC, 12,000 years ago, because the closest I can figure, based on what I've read, that's when the Sphinx was designed, almost 13,000 years ago. We move down through these various ages, the Leo, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, we're now coming out of, into Aquarius. Why is that important? When we look at the history of the planet, there's a tremendous correspondence between the ages and things that have come into being during those ages. It was during the age of Gemini, 6,000 years ago. I'll get this right here. 6,000 years ago, that the idea of the twins comes into human consciousness. During the age of Gemini, the twins. This is where we get the stories of Heru and Set, of Cain and Abel, of Jacob and Esau, Jesus and Satan, Romulus and Remus. You know, there appears to be some connection, because we don't yet understand very well, between what's happening down here and what's happening up there. Our ancestors said, as above, so below. During the time of the age of Taurus, the symbols in Egypt changed. You get the Memphite bull. The symbol of Taurus is of course, the bull. In Assyria, you get the winged bull. You get the Apis bull and the golden calf. Now, the golden calf is important because the golden calf was the symbol before Moses. Moses comes about at a time when they're moving out of the age of Taurus into the age of Aries. That now gives the biblical story a little bit more context. Moses goes up on the mountain, according to the story, gets the 10 Commandments from God, comes back down. The folks have now formed the golden calf. He destroys the golden calf, symbol of the old times. He's trying to carry them to a new time. As a result, the story says the folks have to march around the wilderness for 40 years. till the old folks die off, till those who still have the memory of the old ways die off. That's been our condition in many ways. Many of us have not been able to move to the future because we still have the memory of slavery in our minds. Our young folks have not grown up under slavery, so they can carry us forward. But at the same time, we have not passed on the knowledge to them that will allow them to carry us forward. So we have to be mentors to them, so their boldness and their intuitiveness can then carry our people to the next step. Age of Aries, you get lamb-ram symbols. The character of Jesus comes about at the end of the Age of Aries as we're moving into Pisces. So the beginning of the story of Jesus, what are the symbols? Shepherds in the fields, lamb, ram symbols. By the end of his story, what are the symbols? Pisces, I'll make you a fisherman of men. There's a correspondence between what goes on down here and what goes on up there, and we would not have known anything about that were it not for our ancestors in Egypt. Because it's obvious our people understood this. They were tuned into this some kind of way.
That's on the wall.
Yes. Now, I'll go back to a second for this. I turned this zodiac sideways because I wanted to show Pisces over here and Virgo over here. Now, the ancients said, talking now about astrology and religion, the ancients used to say that the first of the year was at the spring equinox. Europeans changed it back to December, January when it's cold. But our ancient folks said that the beginning of the year started at the spring equinox. And they said at the spring equinox, Father Sun would impregnate Mother Earth. With me? Now, when we get pregnant in our lifetimes, we normally say it takes 9 months for the baby to be born. Check with a doctor, he'll tell you it takes exactly 280 days. That's how come they can figure out when fertilization took place. They can tell you what day you can have your baby. Now, so if the first day of the year, if the first day of the year is in March the 20th is the spring equinox, that leaves 11 days in March. 30 days in April, 31 days in May on down, the first 25 days in December. If you add those days together, from spring equinox to December 25th, Christmas Day, is exactly 280 days. Which means that when Father Sun impregnated Mother Earth, 200 days later, the new sun comes forward. That's been put in our religion as the birth of Christ. It's the birth of the Son, yes. S-U-N. From the old Son. The Son of the Father's Son. See, a lot of what's been encoded into our religion is astronomical information that's been presented in a kind of different way. We've been taught to take it literally, when in fact it's not literal information. So once again, we have to start now looking at all the various things that we've been taught to try to understand what's the meaning behind the meaning. I was told that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, born of a virgin. You go back and look at the calendar. The beginning of the third trimester, if the mother's impregnated on the 20th of March, she begins her third trimester on the 20th of September in the sign of what? Virgo, the Virgin. That's the beginning of the birth process. So in fact, the Son is being born of a virgin, being born in Virgo. The symbol of Virgo is a woman with a sheaf of wheat with 5